Hey everybody, we're back with another commissioned podcast. This one from Steven from Florida. And he commissioned The Exorcist 1973 version, directed by William Friedkin, or maybe Friedkin. It was written by William Peter Blatty from a novel that he wrote called The Exorcist, which itself was inspired by a real-life 1945 exorcism of a Roland Doe. Who lived in Maryland, and served as the basis, the factual quote-unquote basis of this film. It stars Ellen Burstyn, Linda Blair, Max von Sydow, Sydow?
I'd say Sydow, but I don't know how to say it.
And Jason Miller. I have never seen... So first of all, before we get to the movie, apologies to Steven, because he originally commissioned Home Alone. Then we jacked that in favor of using it for our Christmas celebration for 2017. So this is a makeup podcast. He gave us very long and thoughtful feedback on Home Alone, and we unfortunately didn't use any of that. We could have killed two birds with one stone, man. We could have used his feedback in the Home Alone pod and pocketed a nice, tidy $300 windfall, but
somehow this seems better.
we done fucked up. But we got The Exorcist under a belt. I've never seen this film before. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah. I at least once that I can remember, maybe a couple of times.
Okay,
not sure.
So going into this thing, I was expecting a film that had aged poorly. That wasn't very scary, that was going to be not really hold a candle to anything that I've seen, like The Conjuring, any modern scary movie. And instead, I found that this is a really, really good movie that happens to also be a horror film.
Sure.
And honestly, the thing that worked the least about it is like the last third act. I felt like all of the suspense and creepiness was really, really effective, and then when it just got to the all-out demonic onslaught of peas and swirling heads and stuff that I've seen parodied.
That's kind of why I say I'm not sure how many times I've seen this.
Right.
Because it's such like an iconic movie.
Yeah.
And those scenes have been bandied about so much.
That like it started, but still my esteem for the film, I walked away being very surprised at how well this thing holds up.
Yeah.
Not so much in, like, because I found some of the particulars of the plot hard to follow, like this boxing priest and his travails, and the background between the Max von Sydow's character and the Ellen Burstyn as the act. There's like a lot of this really background information that I thought was going to like maybe help me more identify the characters or make the third act work better, and I don't know. In fact, I think it was just I was largely confused. I guess you're maybe the stuff with his mom, the one priest mom, works a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most relevant of the backgrounds that you get for these characters. Because looking at like Father Marin, Max von Sydow's character, I had a hard time connecting his like travails, or I guess his stuff that happens in Iraq with the stuff that happens in Washington or wherever the hell they are, other than just the fact that these are two, it's linking it through the exorcism kind of stuff, like this evil, this sense of evil. Right. And it's interesting because I think the whole movie kind of, the evil permeates that movie, and you can see it in like I think that Demi's mom dies because of the evil. Like she's talked about it as like having fits and screaming, and there's like Ouija boards, and it's all like very dubiously connected through the concept of an evil force. And there seems to be like a rash of hauntings throughout most of the world, if not the entire world.
Yeah, no, and there's the timeline of Demi's, I guess that priest really confused me, because he shows up to his mom, he helps her bandage her leg, then he's talking about he shows up and she's in an institution for like it looks like for the insane, and then she's dead, and everything like seemed like it happened way fast. Like this movie might have like taken 2 years in the life of everyone involved, but wasn't clear to me the passage of time. But and like I said, it didn't distract me from the film. It's just more like questions I had that might be resolved in a second watch. Should we just start talking about the movie, or should we get into Steven's feedback?
I'll see what he's got to say, so I can think about it.
First of all, he recommended the podcast Inside the Exorcist by Wondery, who he says it's about 3.5 hours long and features all kinds of extended information that he personally didn't know, but he wanted to talk about it because it shed light on something he had wondered about since the first time he saw the movie, which is the general creepiness. There's something about this movie that gives you the feeling that everything is off. I know that in reality it's a collection of techniques used by several talented filmmakers, such as dissonance, off-center angles, and things like that, but there's more to it. This movie makes you feel things that few others can. I know there's a lot of interesting information about the problems during production of the film and the origin of its story out there somewhere. Haven't done a deep dive into it, but then again, why would I? It's literally what I'm paying you for.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. I actually noticed that in the opening scenes, like where he finds this little figurine, and he goes and he sees a larger statue of it, and there's nothing particularly ominous about the figurine or the statue in and of itself.
Except for the massive penis.
Well, yeah, I mean, the meat spin it's
somebody coming at me with that, I would find it very ominous indeed.
Right, but the effects that the way they're getting that ominous effect is through, like, the sound cues, like the wind and the close zoom ins and the music, and they're using all the other things. They don't actually use the narrative to tell you that this thing is scary. They use the techniques of cinematography, which always makes for a better movie, in my opinion.
And they also do a lot of stuff that is, I think, interesting from, like, they tried some things that I think you'd call subliminal. Like there's flashes of disturbing things and flashes of the demon's face. I would argue they're not truly subliminal, because subliminal is something that lasts so short that you're not even fully aware of it, where I was fully aware of. But it does. It's something you don't see every day, and it does make you feel unsettled. Like, what the hell was that? So there's a lot of, like, these techniques that they're really trying to use to make you feel uncomfortable, and then. I mean, I think this part of this is, like, I guess the leftover Judeo-Christian proclivities of me, but I find that kind of demon possession and the supernatural horror is some of the most creepy stuff.
Yeah, I agree, but not really for any Christian-based reasons.
Really?
It's more along the lines of the powerlessness that you would be subjected to.
Right.
Because something otherworldly like that can take over your body and move objects, and has that much power, and you have no way to fight it.
Yeah,
I think that's the scary part of it. You know, you can fight a fucking tiger,
right? You
can understand a tiger, but how do you understand the motivations and the power of a demon?
Right. And how do you quantify those powers?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's interesting. As far as his talk about the problems endured of the film, I did, you know, I'm a skeptic, and I looked at this because I'm like, I wonder if that would be, because, you know, I can dismiss most things as just coincidence, but I did a lot of the looking into this, and it seems like there's a lot. The thing to note is that the filming of this took, like, over a year. And so when you hear the, like, 2 people died during the filming of Exorcist, they don't literally mean they were in, like one of the directors of photography died, and so, like, a stunt coordinator of natural causes outside the filming. But if you take several hundred people and take a whole slice of their life, statistics alone would say that certain people would die. And it does seem like there was some careless stunt coordination, especially with the stars, because, like, when there's that scene where Ellen Burstyn is, like, jumps on her daughter's bed to try to keep it from galloping around the bedroom. I guess when the stunt technician yanked her rope to throw her off, she actually legitimately hurt her back. And something that I guess she still struggles with. And I think the same thing happened to Linda Blair. Like, some of the violent stunts they were doing actually injured their joints and their spine.
How many people died during the making of Boyhood? Richard Linklater's Boyhood?
Probably millions. Millions of people died. But it's like one of the things, like, you know, the average Hollywood shoot only lasts, you know, 6 to 8 weeks. So, like, you just make that last 6 to 12 times longer, and you know, you're going to have a bunch of outliers like that. Also, I did some research into the original Possession that this was based on with the exorcism of Roland Doe, and it does seem like that all of these possessions or these exorcisms, I actually thought that the movie depicted it very well, that like you show a Catholic priest this person and they're like, oh my God, they're possessed by demons. You show a trained clinical psychologist and they'll be like, well, this is a person who is acting out or acting crazy or suffering from a delusion. And there's none of the things that this kid did would be outside the abilities of the average 14-year-old. In fact, there's some, and the other thing is like a lot of the stuff that people like the more sensational things that made into the movie were things that people said that they heard that they weren't from eyewitness accounts. And I guess there's an eyewitness account that claimed he saw the boy scratching like words like, I guess, hell into his chest with his fingernail. And mysteriously, when they restrained the boy, those words on the body stopped appearing.
Right.
Huh. But it's this thing swept America. Like my mom, this is something Steve wants us to talk about. My mom, a Jehovah's Witness, utterly convinced that this movie is essentially a documentary. I mean, she thinks that it's a fictionalized version of something that really happened. And if you play at the Ouija board, you can really get demonized. And once you do, then you better fucking call in the priest and invoke the name of God, because that's the only way you're going to get well. But yeah, so we'll probably talk more about that later.
I did wonder watching this movie. So I do like how the psychiatrists describe the process of an exorcism and the value of an exorcism. Essentially, like, this person thinks that an exorcism will work on them, and therefore it does work on them, but not in a demonic or spirit way. It just simply works in a psychiatric way.
Right. You think you're demonized, and someone comes in and says, yep, you're demonized, and now I want to cast it out in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That's like placebo. Like, so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I want to finish up Steven's feedback here.
But I was also wondering, like, with the Ouija stuff, is this the movie that kind of popularized that notion?
I think it's the movie and the book itself, because the book like explicitly makes it seem like, this boy had an aunt who was delving into spiritism and like, dabbling in clairvoying and palm reading and shit like that, and she introduced him to an Ouija board, and then weird shit started happening.
Read the wrinkles and the creases in somebody's shoes.
Right. And, it's like, look, when a game explicitly is about channeling unseen spirits to get some kind of uncanny knowledge, you're probably going to get a lot of people making these casual connections between that and, like, any kind of demonism they see in their own life.
Right.
It does seem like, I mean, I don't know. It's so weird because I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of the fundamentalist where, like, I genuinely believed and was terrified. Like, if one of my friends had ever gotten an Ouija board out and, like, put it on a kitchen table and be like, tonight for game night we will delve into the secrets of the unknown, I probably would have fucking actually had a panic attack because it'd be scary shit. And I'm also on the other side where I'm like, it's just a fucking board game that people are moving around with their fingers, and it's a situation where everyone's trying to either joke or scare or creep each other out, and I can hold both of those viewpoints inside my head simultaneously with my experience and make them seem real. It's kind of crazy. He mentions, Stephen does, I grew up Catholic, and even though I don't practice the faith anymore, the overwhelming threat to humanity that's out there, and the church is seemingly exclusive power to defeat it, was probably the scariest part of the movie to me. You see that the power of the prayers are working, but it might take a very long time. I wonder just how important the young priest leaving the room was. It seems like being alone with Max von Sydow was the opportunity the demon needed in order to strike. With von Sydow out of the picture, the young priest loses hope and sacrifices himself, but that demon was fucking with him the whole time, right? Could she just have killed everyone from the moment she gets loose? Would they have been successful? The young priest stayed in the room and they continued with the exorcism. Did the priest in the end win? There's a couple other questions he has for the end of the podcast, but I thought that would be, I don't know, that might be an interesting place to start, because again, I always find it very hard to inhabit the mind of Jim. like when you were growing up, did you just think everyone was crazy when they were talking about like demons possessing through Ouija board? Did you ever?
Yeah, in the same way that I thought like this personal relationship with God was crazy. Like I just don't believe any of that shit exists.
But did it happen at such a young age that you never felt like?
Well, I'd never seen any evidence
terror?
of it. No, I'd never seen any evidence of it. So, like, if I had some different experiences that I misinterpreted.
Like, if you were 8 years old and you had, like, a night terror when you wake up and you're paralyzed and there's dark shapes over you.
I might buy that shit hook, line, and sinker. I don't know. Right. That wasn't my experience, so I never bought into any of that stuff. It's fun to watch, though.
Yeah. It's funny because I thought about having my sister... Because I think she's seen this movie. She doesn't watch scary movies. She's a lot like I was 7 years ago. And I kind of thought about... but I know... I'm pretty sure she saw this movie and she talked about how terrifying she found it. And I kind of wanted to interview her about that experience, but our schedules didn't line up. But, I mean... Yeah, I can't, like, I feel like I'm a little bit of a carnival sideshow when I talk about this stuff because it's like there's this pleasure of hearing Aaron talk about how scared he was about stuff that isn't real. Yeah. But, I mean, I guess that's what, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you either grew up in a world of fundamentalism, you didn't. And, you know, where this stuff is actually treated as real. Like, I've heard stories of, like, there's stuff in the Jehovah's Witnesses yearbook that they publish each year about... You know, usually it's shit that went down in fucking weird places in Africa, but like people getting possessed by demons and the elders having to come and cast their name out in the name of God and all this other stuff. It's actually a part of your fabric of the way you go through life, that there's this hidden battle that's taking place over everyone's hearts and minds. His questions about the demon and, like, could the demon just have killed everyone from the moment they set in the room, or were they just toying with them? Or those are good questions, and I actually have a fundamentalist answer to them, but I want to see what you thought first. Okay, so the question is raised in the movie, right? Father... Not Marin.
Not Marin,
Demi, that's his name.
Not Marin, yeah. Damien... I don't even know his last name. Karras?
Yeah, Karras. Yes, it is, Karras.
Something like that. He asked the demon, like, why don't you just get rid of those straps? You know, like, because Linda Blair, Reagan is tied down, and he says, why don't you just get rid of the straps? And Reagan responds by saying that would be a vulgar display of power or something. Or
all in due time.
Yeah, and I don't quite understand that. Here's what I think is going on. Yeah. And this is what connects the film in my mind. It all comes down to Father Marin and the battle that he has had with this demon before. And maybe that's why the beginning scenes should be so significant, in that he recognizes the demon. He recognizes the evil. And so when it shows back up in Reagan, in my mind, the goal of that demon is to kill Father Marin. Finally, because Father Marin beat it last time, and it almost killed him, but this time it's back, and I think that has to do with like why when Damien leaves the room, it's able to kill Father Marin, because between the two of them, they were stronger than just Father Marin alone. Father Marin is older now. I feel like that's kind of the main thrust of the demon's purpose in this movie.
Right. There's also... Like, from my understanding, like, if I could explain this like a fundamentalist Christian would, like, the idea that there's these demons on Earth and they're kind of on the lam from cosmic justice. So they're essentially wanting to kind of lay low, but they also have urges that they have to satisfy, like, you know, like these demonic, perverted, what I just call them, like compulsions, kind of, like, and so they find these people to torment and terrify, but they know not to take it too far, because then the old man upstairs will get involved and their asses get inevitably kicked, because no one believes that any demonic power is more powerful than the power of Christ, for example, that can compel one. But it's always a matter of, like, I mean, like, look in the Bible, there's the case of the Legion demon, which essentially was given lip to the Jesus Christ on earth. You know, there's varying levels of power and whatnot. And, you know, the other thing is, I guess this is a whole franchise built around this demon Pazuzu, which is based on a real life, heavily quotes around all that, Babylonian, Mesopotamian wind god. who is seen as kind of like an evil spirit by these cultures.
That explains a lot about the sound design at the beginning.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the way to understand, like, because I when I first saw this movie, I'm like, this is like fucking Indiana Jones. Why am I spending 15 minutes in the Iraqi desert doing all this excavation, and then here's the demonic statues and all that. I think that's just to introduce us, as you said, to show us that Marin has familiarity with these things. Mm-hmm. It's in the same way that, like, when Indiana Jones 3 opens up with him going after the Cross of Coronado,
right,
doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the movie except to show his family's lifelong obsession with, artifacts that tied to the Christ and Christianity leading up to the Holy Grail and its importance. Mm-hmm. It didn't really have anything to do with anything else. So I feel like those scenes just kind of tie, because otherwise Marin would just come in kind of like who's the guy from Dracula? Professor Von Bullshit.
Yeah, that's him. I do. But which Dracula? Like, there's
all the Dracula has a Professor Von something or other, Von Broomstick or Von Helsing. Van Helsing.
Yeah. Okay.
He would just come in, and his point is to just come in here and drop the dime on vampiric lore and essentially be a living expository. This allows you to kind of more organically and more cinematically appreciate his connection to the demon, rather than just like, hey, I know this crusty old fuck who's done this shit before. Let's call him in, and he's gonna, do a PowerPoint presentation on Pazuzu, and we're gonna see how George Clooney drops the elevator shaft here and sprinkles the holy water, and then we rip off the Bellagio. I feel like it's just like they're showing rather than telling you, but it does make like a little bit of a confusing movie-going experience.
Yeah, one that you have to pay close attention to, I think, and also give it a little bit of thought instead of have it fed to you, which is kind of this movie in a nutshell. A lot of it is like you were talking about the timeline with Demi's mom.
Right.
So much of that is just not explained. Like, 1 minute she's in the hospital, the next minute she's dead. Oh, okay, I get it. Time has passed here. We're not seeing this in completely real time. That kind of stuff.
The other thing Stephen picks up on is he was confused about like the associations with this evil spirit statue, and there's like a little tiny totem that we see Father Marin handle, but then later the detective sees it outside of Reagan's house, and I think that's supposed to suggest that this is another kind of fundamentalist appreciation that like demons can inhabit and possess or like imbue a particular object with some sort of evil power.
Yeah.
That like, is this something Jim and I used to always joke about? Like Jehovah's Witnesses scared to death of garage sales.
Oh, yep.
Because what if you're buying this polo shirt and this person was a devil worshiper,
right?
And like you're gonna wear this polo shirt and suddenly your eyes turn green and start throwing up pea soup. Like that's like a no joke concern they had. That like you're not safe with anything. So the idea of, and it's like also like if you've seen the Brady Bunch episode where Greg Brady gets the satanic Hawaiian fucking surf god and then all shit, like that's essentially what Jehovah's Witnesses actually believe.
They do.
So like it might be confusing to you, but I think you're supposed to appreciate that this is the demon using this totem to kind of subtly insinuate himself into this family's life, and maybe as a way, I'd have to watch the movie a couple more times, but maybe as a way to rekindle his hostilities with Marin, because wasn't it the case that Marin had just transferred back to this city? I thought they made a point.
They said something about 3 or 4 months ago he was in Iraq, but he's been back now.
Not just in the country, but I think in the same city. So the fact that the demon would manipulate things to get this thing into this home, it seems like it's all part of its unfathomable evil master plan.
Yeah, and I really can't tell to the point of who wins at the end. It's tough to say because the demon successfully kills Father Marin, who I think he had a beef with.
Right.
Or Aid had a beef with. It also... it's tough for me to tell whether Damien jumped out of that window of his own volition to protect Reagan or the demon pushed him out. I think the demon pushed him out and therefore won that battle because it killed whatever film director or whatever in the exact same way.
Right.
It shoved that film director out the window. So the film director wasn't trying to save Reagan by jumping out the window when it pulled the demon into him.
Right. No, there is, I think, to me, how I interpret it, and again, I've only seen this movie once, but it looked like that the demon overcame Karras, wanted to turn his attentions to Reagan. Karras momentarily wrestled and got the upper hand, and then used that moment of lucidity to throw himself out the window. But
the problem is it matches up with the director's
You're
death.
right, and also it also parallels. I talked about this, the biblical story of Legion. Like several demons who had taken over this particular poor man.
Yeah,
and when Jesus threw him out, they begged for him to allow them to possess a herd of swine that was nearby, rather than just being driven out to wherever demons go when they're not actively tormenting the living. And Jesus allowed that, and then they took the herd of swine and ran it over a cliff because, again, they just love tormenting and fucking and killing the things that are alive, apparently.
Yeah.
So I felt like that there's a lot. You could be right, because that's a very overt similarity, that demon immediately takes possession of something and then causes it to die. But I mean, obviously, there's many more Exorcists, and it's like, this series against the demon Pazuzu. So ultimately, I don't think it got defeated.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've remade this movie. They've made sequels. They've made prequels.
Have you seen any of that stuff?
Yeah.
How are they?
I want to say one of them is called like The Right.
Because I would say that
right?
they're all probably shitty, but then again, I thought Exorcist, like, I could believe that, like, if there's an Exorcist 2, that it's possibly as good as Godfather 2.
No.
Okay.
The remake that I saw was nowhere near as good.
Okay.
As this one.
But it's like one of the things, like, like, I don't know when sequels just started to, like, axiomatically suck, but they not necessarily. They always do that.
That's true.
Especially because, again, I was blown away by what a successful movie this was.
Yeah. And I can't imagine what audiences in 1973 would have thought seeing this movie. It has to be. I mean, even to this day, it's some of the most fucked up stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah, and so a lot of it still holds up.
Absolutely. I mean, the stuff with Reagan and the cross, and just like,
oh god,
I don't even necessarily want to describe it here. It's so vulgar. But like,
Jesus fuck you.
In 1973,
right? You're just there to see him. Yeah,
shit.
yeah. And I thought it was interesting to see Roger Ebert when I was reading his review, because I always do, who I see as kind of like a guy who's not necessarily shy from sensational stuff. He was openly questioning why this movie wasn't rated X.
Yeah.
Because
that's fair.
that stuff was shocking to society's sensibilities. And it's not like that. It's not like we've even like tread those that like that's still shocking, because it's not like, we're back to the thrusting the bloody crucifix into the little girl's vagina trope. Oh, how many times we've seen this? Like, it was out there, and it still kind of is out there.
It is, yeah. And even though we have movies like Saw and Hostel, right? Like that torture porn stuff.
Right.
This is so much more vulgar.
Right. And there's no build-up. You just come in like, the last time we saw Reagan, she was troubled. But then we see her, and she's got the demonic effect, and she's doing this to her body, and it's fucking crazy. But I thought equally as unnerving as some of the medical procedures that they went through. Like that thing where they took the large gauge needle and put it into her jugular, and they pull it out and just start arterially spurting out while she's conscious, and they're feeding this wire into her brain. Like, I think the movie is trying to show that, these procedures are traumatic. Like, the medical cure for this kind of madness is not necessarily pretty. And the obviously the exorcism is an intense process too. But that's the thing, is I also thought that the movie played pretty non-committal about what was going on until Father Marin showed up, and then it pretty much put its thumb on the scale of, yes, this is an actual demonic possession. But I kind of wondered, like, I was expecting to have a conversation where we're like, did this actually happen or not? But when she started levitating 6 feet off the bed and her head made a full 360, like that kind of took things up. Because, like, I thought it was so interesting. You mentioned the thing where Father Karras is like, well, why don't you let yourself out of the bonds? He also tested her about, like, what was And also, what was my mother's maiden name?
Oh, right.
The demon should know that.
It didn't say anything, though.
Right. But, like, it seemed like he was trying to make specific tests of, and he had come to a certain conclusion. And I kind of thought that was, I respected that for the movie for doing that. Because to me, that's a fairly rational look at what this might be.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the major tensions is that rationality versus the, I guess, supernatural, the spiritual here. And for me, the moment where the movie kind of put its foot down and said this is supernatural is when the bed was shaking violently with both Regan and her mother in it. Mm-hmm. That to me, like, a kid can't do that. Like, a kid cannot make a bed shake violently, come off of all of its feet at the same time, like stuff like that. So to me, like, her quest to find a psychiatric solution or a medical solution, they were all for nothing, in my opinion. Because I knew, I mean, obviously, a movie called The Exorcist, you kind of know where it's headed to begin with.
Right.
But yeah, that was the moment for me.
I thought Ellen Burstyn did a really good job of portraying a woman at her wit's end, and I always think that's something that James Wan does really well too. He casts these women in this unenviable position of having these just true, like all these people inhabit a rational, post-Enlightenment world where this shit just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And they are dutifully going, and they're like, calling the police, and they're getting the mental health people engaged, and they're taking them to doctors, and there's just no answers. There's no answers. No answers.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the key things to make the movie work. I really particularly like. There's a lot of things they do where, they ratchet up the tension, but there's no real payoff, like her going up into the attic to investigate they filmed that like it's going to be a hammer drop on you. Yeah. And absolutely nothing comes of it. Like, they do that a couple times where they tease that this is going to be the time where we show you the shark and Jaws, and then the John Williams theme just fades down to nothing, and nothing happens. And that's super effective to build the tension. In fact, I think that's why I don't like the third act so much, because once the demon is out there in all of its glory, and it's impaled itself on a crucifix and spit pea soup on people, there's really not much. There's not many more tricks it's got up its sleeve. Yeah.
I guess one of the big plot points for Damien also is that he's losing his faith throughout this film. And that may be why he's so skeptical, I suppose. Like, he's supposed to be skeptical of needing the exorcism here, but I feel like he's more skeptical than he might have been if he hadn't been losing his faith at the time.
Plus, he's a Jesuit, which is the kind of like more scholarly, science-based arm of the church in the first place. So,
they're the ones who sent him to become a psychiatrist to get the training.
Right.
And by the end of it, I would have to say that he has most certainly regained his faith.
Well,
I mean, at the very least, the things that he's seen
right before he died.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's it's when we're talking about the heaven game. That's what matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the guy on his deathbed, if you want to call it that, the sidewalk where he's smashed to pieces.
Yeah, he gets
the guy
his
comes
last
up and gets a confession. Yeah,
I guess that he actually survives in the sequel. It's like a Jeff Goldblum kind of thing. Like, you think he's dead in Jurassic Park, but it turns out he survived. It was all just rumors that he didn't.
I want to say I've seen the prequel and a remake.
Right.
I don't know that I've seen a sequel. Is it just called The Exorcist 2?
Beats the fuck out of me, man, because there's like 17 of these movies. I'm not even joking. There's a ton. If you want to like anything that's got the demon Pazuzu in it, it is like a lot of movies and books. What was the point of the guy accusing the Austrian fellow of being a Nazi? Was it just another kind of like
maybe to
something?
Add some humor. I
didn't get it.
I didn't find it that funny. The guy was both ridiculous and lewd, and I don't know.
Right. Was it supposed to show that like the demon is affecting other people? Because the build up to that party was Reagan coming down and pissing on the floor and saying to the director, "You're going to die," which he did. So,
is that who she was talking to? I thought she was talking to the astronaut. Because there's an astronaut in the room.
Oh, shit. Did he die too?
I don't know.
I thought it was the director and she says, "You're going to die up there," and then he later got pushed out of her bedroom window. I thought...
So there's a conversation before that Burke, the director guy, is having with
I also
dude.
confused who the hell Burke was, and like whether him and Burstyn were actually having an affair, and like there's a lot of like that I still not sure I got wrapped up, honestly.
Well, there's a conversation about Mars, like being the first missionary on Mars or something.
Right.
So I think that guy is an astronaut.
Okay.
And she was talking to him, but I'm not certain of that.
The performance of Linda Blair in this is pretty amazing,
Oh, it's incredible.
Like, I thought I was laboring under the illusion that she did, like, this was a mechanically or electronically reprocessed version of her own voice, but they hired a famous voice actress to do all these intense takes and demonic takes, and she did, like, I don't know if you read any of this stuff, but she did like, she was an alcoholic and been like 10 years sober, and she started chain smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey to get like this particularly tortured, like, she like gave up sobriety to record these lines, and like,
sounds like she's a bad actor.
Right.
She's actually got.
It's like Peter O'Toole. It's like Peter O'Toole. It's like, try acting sometime, my boy. It's much easier.
Right.
But she went through all this stuff, and also she like didn't want to be credited in the movie because she wanted it to be. She wanted the verisimilitude of the performance to carry the day and people to think it's a little girl, which mission objective. But then once the movie came out and was so critically acclaimed, she had a change of heart, and there was this big lawsuit about adding her credit back to the film, and I don't know, but it was, I guess I'm very slightly less impressed by her performance now that I know all that vocal work was like done post fact, but just the physicality of the performance. Yeah. And how,
I mean, I've seen,
like, as a child, how difficult it must be to just go to these kind of like, I mean, I'm trying to think of like, okay, I'm going to sit there with a 12-year-old girl. It's like, okay, honey, this is a crucifix, and you might be wondering why it's covered in prop blood. Well, here's what I need you to act like you're doing. Like, that's pretty fucking intense.
Yeah, and I don't quite know how to feel about asking a young girl to do that sort of stuff, or to be as involved as, however involved as she was. I imagine they did like insert shots to actually, no pun intended, to actually show that kind of stuff, but she had to get like a general feeling of the scene, right? Like, otherwise you don't get the correct performances in the shots you need. So, yeah, it seems rough on her, but yes, she does a tremendous job.
Yeah, I always worry when I see little kids that are very effectively at being terrorized in films, and I'm thinking like the cast of Stranger Things. I'm thinking of either the cast of Conjuring 1 or 2. The Insidious, like all these like really effective horror films, Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense, and it's like I don't like, if you're 10 to 12, if you're 8 to 12 years old and you're this good at acting Haunted, like, is everything okay at home? Like how are you able to tap in? And I get it, it's acting, right?
Right.
And it's direction and it's all that stuff, but it's, I always feel a little bad. I wish there was outtakes, like every horror movie in my mind should have outtakes where they show the kids laughing and having fun on set, just so I know that they knew it wasn't real and they're not like going to blow their brains out after the film is done.
Yeah,
but they don't do that for me. They don't. There's no interest in releasing the tension during the credit sequence. I found I need like
no, the music doesn't help either.
No, they want it to sit there and have it affect you and like follow you home. Mm-hmm. But the other question that I'm not quite sure about, there's a scene where I believe it's the Virgin Mary statue has been vandalized, where it's got a big old cock and horn titties.
Yeah.
Did the demon just do that, like as a physical manifestation? Did he possess Regan to go down to the local church and do it? Like, there's a lot of things there that I'm not quite sure how things got connected there.
Yeah, I'm not either, and that's kind of why I feel there's a general haunting happening throughout the city, because it seems like a lot of people have been affected by it. Like I said, I think Damien's mom was affected by it. She's not related directly to...
Why do you think she's... Because I thought...
Because of the episode she had, the screaming fit where she injured her leg and was sent to the hospital. Like, I think that was the demon fucking with her, but I don't know why. because she's unconnected to Father Marin. She's, I guess, maybe
it's like the Ghostbusters New York City, man. It's just like there's shit's popping.
Maybe
it's all about Zool, man. Pazuzu. Zool's got nothing on Pazuzu. Pazuzu rolls into town. Watch the fuck out.
But I just got this general feeling of haunting in the city.
Huh. I guess it's like that would, like, you know, that makes the Nazi pig scene work because it shows this person who's like everyone thinks, I guess, is rational and he's acting out.
But they're having the party in the house, so I would get that.
Right.
Like, that's the location. But his mom, Damien's mom, is never in the house.
Right. And also, like, why, like, okay, the Ouija board's a conduit for demons, granted. Sure. Mm-hmm. I'll buy that. But why this house in particular? Like, I felt like there maybe is a scene where, you know, Reagan found this weird idol at the beach or something. I mean, I don't know exactly, but there were, but maybe that's part of the movie. They leave things intentionally mysterious, so it does feel like something that's kind of unfathomable or something that you don't really understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we talk about Max von Sydow in this movie?
Sure.
When I saw him, I'm like, how the fuck old is this guy? Because he looks like he's 80 years old, and I just saw him in, like, most recently in The Force Awakens, and he looks about this fucking old. This is one of the best makeup jobs I've ever seen. This man is 44 years old, and he looks like he's 74.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Like, in fact, other than some slight inconsistencies of his neck, in very bright desert conditions, I never would have imagined that he was basically a guy in the prime of his life made up to look like an old man.
Yeah, and I think that there were some working relationships here that caused them to cast Max, whereas I wouldn't see any reason why you wouldn't just cast an older actor.
Right.
Unless you thought maybe the physicality would literally kill them. But
I didn't think there was that much physical.
Not for that character.
Yeah, there wasn't, in this particular iteration, there wasn't that much physicality.
No.
And there was a couple points where, like, when they showed him transitioning from the archaeology scene to back to real life, where I thought his makeup was a little bit dodgier, but I thought they were suggesting that he was getting sicker. Like that he was having some kind of actual reaction to being this close to the demon's presence. Like it seemed like his eyes got a little bit more sunken, his hair was a little bit more flax and wan, and I don't know. Did that?
Well, I got the impression that it was the battle with the first battle with the demon that he did years ago that essentially put him in ill health. And it might be the cause of him taking the pills or needing the pills, I suppose. Yeah, so to meet it again, I imagine it would have some pretty profound effects on him.
Right. What else we got to talk about?
I got just a lot of really dumb stuff. Like, actually, you talked about the trick with the holy water, right? How he sprayed tap water.
I got some dumb stuff to talk about, too.
Okay, cool. So this trick with the holy water, what would make you think that a demon, if you sprayed it with tap water, would not be able to trick you into thinking that it thought it was holy water, thereby avoiding an exorcism? Like, I don't understand, like, why you would think that the demon
that's
wouldn't
actually
try
great,
to trick
because
you.
that was one of the things I had as a question mark of, like, well, if this was tap water, then why did the demon...
Maybe as a show,
like, it could have it
to avoid an exorcism, like,
right.
fall for the bait intentionally, you know?
Yeah, because that's the other thing is, like, it turns out there's a manual called, I don't know what the Latin version, but it's essentially called, like, the Roman Rituals or something. It's a handbook that Catholic priests have, and it talks about here's the last rites, here's what you do at baptism, here's what you do at a wedding. Like, there's all these different sacraments and rituals that you do, and one of them is the ritual of exorcism, and it's all, like, laid out. Like, here are the 3 things you look for to identify. I'm like, well, demons can read.
Now there's an illiteracy test to be a demon.
So, man, that's why they're so mad. They're just fucking ignorant.
Yeah.
But like, you know, demons can read. So, like, if I was a demon trying to lay in the cut that is Earth and avoid getting sent back to hell or Tartarus or whatever I don't want to be sent back to, why wouldn't I just wait till the priests show up to investigate and give them what they need to think that this is just a regular old mental illness or one flew over the cuckoo's nest type situation? Yeah,
and that's. So once they've discovered the demon, I get it. They have some power over it. But yeah, until they start doing all of the stuff that would prove it,
right?
Why yeah, why not just fake it?
Yeah.
Get them out of the room and then continue to terrorize.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because like since we're talking about just mental thoughts, I had this feeling when like Max von Sydow had discovered this giant penis having demon statue. Like, I kind of wish there were things like that in real life. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Like, you could find this like this statue imbued with evil and like spit in its face and start a fucking adventure. Start an adventure with like you know, I can't go to a place on Earth and attain a battle of cosmic significance.
It's true.
I mean, the best I can do is just find some shitbag politician and punch him in the face. It's not the same thing.
No.
Like you know, that the stakes of that aren't going to go outside my local area, let alone the fucking cosmos. Yeah.
They say real life is stranger than fiction. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, people think that's like I just like, oh, that's such a terrifying. But I don't know. It's also kind of cool. Like, you know, if like you know,
if you have a death wish, sure.
Well, I mean, it's like, do you want to live in the regular world, or do you want to live in a world with dragons in it? Like, Dragon World is definitely more dangerous, but also pretty exciting.
It's true. What if you could tame one?
I don't know.
Tame a demon and ride it through the skies.
Just chisel its dick off and put it above your mantelpiece. What are you going to, oh, you're going to...
Come and get me, demon.
You're going to possess... Still got your dick. It's on my mantelpiece. Have fun getting it back to Iraq. It's going to take you centuries, if not millennia, of careful manipulation of humans to get that... to get, like, well, you know, it's like this guy for 1,000 years now has got a work order. Why am I epoxying this dick back on the statue? There's got to be other things, you know?
Yep.
I think that'd be fun.
So I made that stupid joke about the illiteracy test, but that scene was rather hilarious to me, where she's on the phone, like, trying to get her ex to answer, I guess, like Reagan's dad to answer the phone or get passed to him. And she's on the line for 20 minutes, and she is just fucking ranting and raving over this 20 minutes.
Right.
I'm like, lady, that is a phone call to AT&T nowadays. Like, if you're not prepared to wait 20 minutes, you might as well not even call.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny, too.
Yeah.
Just this is how bent out of shape she was about... And it's funny because my wife, I was watching this with her on Saturday evening, and, you know, she's a customer service manager now. And this was like, you know, like she's just like, just shut the fuck up. It's not this person's fault. You know, she's like getting animated about it. You know, because I was like, you know, just take it down a couple notches. Like,
I guess that is probably like Ma Bell long distance charges,
right?
Back in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
So she's probably
those didn't go away until the mid to late 90s. Honestly, I remember having to pay, you know, fucking absorb it. Like, if we want to call Uncle Nick down in Texas, we got to watch it because it's going to be a 30-minute phone call.
Yep.
That's less than that's more than I think the phone part of my cell phone bill now. Period. Yeah. And that's a space age technology that James T. Kirk would envy.
I thought it was funny that the cop loves to talk film. He loves to critique it. He's essentially doing what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty cool too.
And I guess there was...
Like, Lieutenant Kinderman should be the patron saint of bald move.
So I think there's a director's cut of this that's like 20 minutes longer.
You know, I almost watched it, but I searched for, like, what is the definitive take, and everyone says that the extended version is shit compared to the original.
Yeah, so I read Ebert's review of the extended version, too. He didn't like it. He thought one of the changes made was useful and made sense, and then the rest of them kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, I guess that guy shows back up and has a conversation with Damien's priest buddy. I don't know
the guy that gave him the last rites.
Yeah. Okay. Has a conversation with him as he's like kind of looking down the stairs where his friend died, and it's just a mundane thing about movies.
Huh.
So I don't know what that adds to the end of the film, but that's apparently a thing they did.
Yeah, it's interesting because William Friedkin, who's the director of this movie, also 2 years before The Exorcist made The French Connection, which is another film that I've heard. Like, that's one that I have not seen, but I've heard spoken highly of. Like, you know, by no less a personage than Hank Schrader likes that film. So it makes sense that, like, you know, he would have this character that's like a film buff. out of kind of nowhere with nothing to do with anything. But I enjoyed that. But it's also like a kind of bizarre. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this film that does seem like it's just there to confuse or keep you off kilter. Mm-hmm. Which again, pretty smart to do.
Yeah, it's almost like the whole movie wants to do that, and it does it even with the narrative, right? Like even with the way it cuts between scenes. There's no a lot of the times when time will pass, the transition will be such that you will understand that.
Right.
And I don't feel like this movie really did much of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was an intentional or if that's just 1973 filmmaking, but it definitely had an effect on me watching the movie.
Yeah, I also was surprised at how restrained the soundtrack was on the film because, like, other than a couple of notable moments, like the beginning of the movie is like a sonic assault on you.
Yeah, with very little dialogue, it's mostly soundtrack.
Right. When you're just seeing Marin's interactions with these evil artifacts, but like, you know, and I guess that's a hallmark now to think about it, like James Wan stuff too, is that the sound is used very deliberately and carefully. It's not wall to wall, just like creepy ambient music all the time. And there was, I felt like that there was a lot of just silence, which I find is more effective than, you know, minor chords hammering underneath every single thing.
Or some strings coming in, some
right.
like really high strings.
Whatever.
Right. And this movie didn't do much, if any, jump scares. I'm trying to remember even a single jump scare in this movie. I think maybe when they show the demon's face, that might be almost considered a jump scare.
I don't even. Yeah, I think it's more of like a pseudo subliminal thing because you recognize it. And I thought it was like a skull, so I rewound it and saw it, and it's I guess what it actually was is test footage for the demon makeup that they were usually going to use for Reagan, and they thought it looked like creepy against a stark background, so they're just like, oh, just fuck it, just drop it in for a couple frames.
And I want to say I've seen the director's cut of this because in the director's cut there's also a scene of Reagan doing like this backwards crab walk,
the
like
spider
on
walk,
the ceiling
I've seen
or whatever.
That, yeah,
and I've seen that, and I remember another shot of the demon that's like much more close up and maybe cued with a big string hit or something, but I can't remember exactly how it happens, but I think I've seen the director's cut.
The spider walk's one thing I kind of wish they could have fit into the movie because I have seen that like on YouTube. I forget, or maybe it was, wasn't it? What was I? God damn it! I know I've learned this a million times of people, but there's this 100 most scary movies thing that I think the Sci-Fi Channel used to run or something along those lines, where every hour is like another 10 films, and they did the Exorcist is one in the top 10, but they did. I think they showed on that like the cut spider walk, and it is a very creepy, you know, especially for the time. Yeah, because that's the other thing is like we've talked about the special effects and how like first of all they're pretty minimal. Like the medical stuff was pretty horrific, but I guess they built a full life-size articulated puppet that looks just like Linda Blair in her makeup, so they could do the things like twisting her head and doing some of the unnatural contortions she's doing. And it like those scenes, it's, you know, her makeup's not by modern standards anything to like, you know, rate like to be blown away by. I mean, Max von Sydow's old maid makeup is the thing that's like really amazing. But it does do the purpose of hiding the transitions between them using that puppet and actually using Linda Blair to where you really can't tell. It's very tough to tell which one is which. Yeah. I'm trying to think what's the most... I mean, honestly, the scene with the crucifix was probably the thing where I was just like, what the fuck am I... That and the... where they insert the wire into her brain. Those were both kind of like, whew, wow, what am I watching here?
For the second time in as many weeks, I've seen just a vicious ball grab. There's another one in this movie. We just watched The Beat That My Heart Skipped, which is maybe the most intense ball grab I've ever seen. This one is second to that, certainly. But I don't know. There seems to be a repeating theme. If anybody else has a commission they want to do that specifically involves ball grabs, we'll open commissions back up.
Really? Just for ball grabs?
Yeah.
Famous ball grabs in history? Oh, man. I don't know if I can take it. Yeah, there was a pretty vicious the demon strength enhanced ball grab in this.
Yep.
What else? You said you got a bunch of other just ridiculous stuff. I'm in the mood for it.
That was pretty ridiculous, I thought. But so this movie has to be the inspiration for one of my favorite all-time horror series, which is The Evil Dead. Because the makeup is so similar. The effects work with like the pea soup shooting on people is very reminiscent of what Sam Raimi does in those movies with blood and many other fluids. And it's all about demon possession.
Like Raimi's famous for like not telling his actors fully what he's about to do to them before he does it to them. And I guess the guy that played Karras, he's supposed to like he said that they're going to shoot the pea soup on his chest.
Oh no!
And they shot him right in the face,
in
his
mouth. Yeah,
and like that kind of like disgusted, horrified reaction is
it's genuine.
I feel like people are getting away with that less and less because there's a whole thing about like, you can't, like, as much as you want to get the the reaction of a guy who actually thinks, oh shit, this stunt's gone wrong, I'm falling to my death, like Alan Rickman in the first Die Hard. Like, it's not exactly ethical to fuck with
and if that's what you want, you don't need to hire actors.
Right.
Just hire regular people and scare them half to death.
Right. Yeah, it does. Like, it is this weird. If I was an actor, I would be kind of insulted that this person thinks that they can't get the performance without like tricking me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's a technique that a lot of directors, certainly of that era, were using.
It's just such a weird relationship between the director and actor that like the director, like, I will lie and cheat and physically abuse you to get, you are just a fucking instrument.
And if
I'm Jimi Hendrix and I want to light you on fire just to see what you sound like, well then fuck it, I'm going to do it. And what are you going to do to stop me?
And then there's like the counterexample. Have you seen the documentary Andy and Me?
I have not
with Jim
yet.
Carrey doing his Andy
It's
Kaufman
on my list, yeah.
on the set. He just turned into those characters. He would never fucking stop.
Right.
And he was antagonizing everybody. When he was Tony Clifton, he was just a massive asshole to everyone.
Yeah.
The director didn't know how to handle him, like couldn't manage him.
Right.
And in that case, you've got the reverse, which is the actor just totally fucking with the director.
Right. Yeah, I wonder what the deal with that is, because like Jared Leto, I've you hear all kinds of things about the method acting, which was what we're talking about, and like Jared Leto got so into it that he was like essentially harassing his co-stars on Suicide Squad being the Joker. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It is like, on the one hand, I see Daniel Day-Lewis employ the method acting to just what seems like brilliant effect, and I never heard anyone be like, yeah, and also he'd scout me in real life because he just wanted to see what it was like.
Right.
Like there's got to be a way to do that without like antagonizing other people. The same thing with directors. Like, you can, I don't know what you would do. Trying to think if you wanted to be,
ask them to do their job, man.
Right.
That's what they're there for.
Or say like, hey, we're going to drop you on like at some point in your rigging, like 6 feet, just to see what you just get a natural reaction of you. Is that like that okay? And now you're already spoiling the experiment a little bit, but I still think, like I'm of the opinion that you can know that a drop's coming and it's still going to get a visceral reaction out of you if you actually experience the thing. Like, there's ways you could probably do that without like terrorizing your cast and crew. And here, poor Linda Blair and Ellen Burstyn apparently have got lifelong disabilities because of the shit that was pulled. So, yeah, I don't know. What else you got for me, man?
That's about it.
Okay. Well, again, Steven, I am certainly sorry that we stole your thunder on Home Alone. I wish we had incorporated your notes on that into that, because you had a lot of good stuff on there. On the other hand, I hope you can see the bright side of essentially getting a twofer deal here. And thanks for making me watch The Exorcist, because I probably never would have watched it. I would have just dismissed like, why do I need to? It was one of those things, like, it was a sensation for its time, but it's not particularly good. It's like something that's more what is that? Not sensational, but
nostalgic.
No, what's that? The word where it's like
classic.
It's maybe it is sensational, like something that just is there to provide. It's not provocative. It's, what is this word that I'm groping for? Exploitative.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. I just thought it would be something like that never. But it turns out it's a very, very good film.
Yeah.
And like, it's right up there, I guess, with The Shining as far as I don't know how scary the film is, but like for something that evokes a certain type of feeling and a certain look and a certain emotional state from the audience. It's hard to, because that's the thing. As much as like The Conjuring and Conjuring 2, they're not particularly great films.
Sure, they're well-constructed horror films.
They're well-constructed horror films that do the thing they're setting out to do in very unique and creative and inventive ways, but they're not on like a Godfather level or anything like this. Whereas these films, like the Shining and this film, approaches that, where it's like
they approach art, as opposed to craft.
Yeah, achieve art, honestly. So I probably never would have seen it had it not been for the suggestion here from Stephen from Florida. So thanks again, and again, 1,000 apologies for the fuck up with Home Alone. If you would like to commission your very own podcast, you can't, because we still are way far behind in our queue, and we are still in catch-up mode. Stay tuned for announcements for what our plans are for the commission feature in the future. But we will be back with the next one in due time. Until then, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.